Sergeants, with your recordings, please.
Yeah, I can't record it. I'm not co-hosting.
Noah, we need co-host abilities, please. There.
Recording in progress.
Computer recording is up. Cloud recording is up. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's hybrid New York City Council hearing of the Committee on Finance. At this time, will all panelists please turn on your videos. To minimize disruption, please place electronic devices to vibrate or silent. Thank you for your cooperation. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to today's Finance Committee hearing. I'm Councilmember Justin Brennan, and I have the privilege of chairing the Finance Committee. I want to acknowledge my colleagues who have joined us today, starting with Speaker Adams, Council Members Ayala, Powers, Lewis, Brooks Powers, Barron, Brewer, Hanks, Hudson, Kagan, O.C., Sanchez, Juan, Moya, Carr, and Yeager. And more folks will be joining us. I'll announce them as they arrive. We have bunch of folks on Zoom. So today, the Finance Committee will be voting on 6 items, which are 2 bid-related resolutions, the Council's fiscal 23 operating budget, a transparency resolution, and an introduction and companion resolution relating to Ski and D property tax exemption renewals. So let's begin with the 2 bid resolutions. The first sets forth March 24th, 2022 at 10 a.m. in this room as the date, time, and place to hold a public hearing considering the local law that would establish the West Village bid in Councilmember Bottcher's district in Manhattan. Councilmember Bottcher is supportive of the bid's establishment. The second sets forth March 24, 2022 at 10 a.m. in the committee room as the date, time, and place to hold a public hearing, considering the local law that would establish the Castle Hill bid in Councilmember Farias' district in the Bronx. Councilmember Farias is supportive of the bid's establishment as well. Next, we have the Council's fiscal 23 operating budget and accompanying OTPS schedule. Council's fiscal 23 proposed budget includes $75.7 million for personal services and $23.4 million for OTPS, or other than personal services. Next, we have the transparency resolution. The transparency resolution sets forth the new delegation and changes in the designation of certain organizations receiving local, aging, anti-poverty, and youth discretionary funding, and funding pursuant to certain initiatives in the budget. As with all transparency resolutions, council members will have to sign a disclosure form indicating whether or not a conflict exists with any of the groups on the attached list. If any council member has a potential conflict of interest with any of the organizations listed, he or she has the opportunity to disclose the conflict at the time of their vote. As a reminder, please disclose any conflicts you may have with proposed subcontractors used by organizations sponsored by discretionary funding. These disclosures must be made before the subcontractor can be approved. Disclosure forms must be completed and submitted prior to the vote on the transparency resolution and may be emailed to Julius Caranda, who is also present today in chambers, awaiting your questions, to answer your questions. Last, we have the resolution and introduction relating to SCI and D property tax exemption renewals. These bills, sponsored by Speaker Adams, would automatically renew for the next tax year all senior citizen homeowner and disabled homeowner property tax exemptions to all properties that receive the benefit this year. The bills would allow the Department of Finance to require renewals in 4 instances where it believes the property may no longer be eligible for the benefit next year. Specifically, if the owner has died, the owner has sold the property, the owner has added a new owner to the deed, or if the owner no longer uses the property as a primary residence. Last year, the Council enacted Local Law 38, which automatically renewed SCI and D benefits, though only for that tax year under a limited grant of authority under New York state law. As a result of that legislation, Department of Finance reported that over 12,400 homeowners were automatically renewed, with another 25,600 homeowners that renewed via a renewal application, including those who submitted applications before the passage of the law or those who fell into one of those enumerated categories. For this year, Department of Finance reports that approximately 5,426 homeowners could potentially benefit from the proposed legislation. These pieces of legislation were prompted by the Governor's Executive Order 11.1 issued on December 26, 2021, which was later extended by Executive Order 11.3 issued on February 14, 2022. The resolution and local law conforms with the authorities that the EO 11.1 and EO 11.3 afforded to this body. Department of Finance Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, Kenneth Graith, is here to testify regarding the proposed SCI and D renewal extensions, and is joined by Pierre Dejean of Department of Finance's Assistant Commissioner for Property Exemption Administrations. And we're going to hear from them now after they are sworn in by counsel.
Do you affirm that your testimony will be truthful to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief? Thank you. You may begin when ready.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Brannon and members of the Finance Committee. My name is Kenneth Grace, and I am the Director of Intergovernmental Affairs at the New York City Department of Finance. I am joined here today by my colleague Pierre Dejean, the Assistant Commissioner for Property Exemptions Administration at the New York City Department of Finance. We are here today to offer the Department's full support for the legislation, which allows the Department to opt into Governor Hochul's Executive Order 11.1, which was signed on December 26, 2021. The pre-considered intro allows the Department to automatically enroll the 22-23 assessment roll, the renewal of the certain residential property taxation exemptions received on 21-22 assessment roll for persons 65 years of age and older, and persons with disabilities who earn $58,399 a year or less. In other words, taxpayers currently receiving either a senior citizen's home exemption, homeowner's exemption, or a disabled homeowner's exemption will have their exemption automatically renewed for the coming year starting July 1st. Of the current list of 17,902 eligible renewal recipients, we have yet to hear from 5,426 households. And without this legislation, those households are at risk of having those benefits revoked if no application for renewal is submitted by the statutory deadline of March 5th, 2022. It is our belief that any homeowner entitled to one of these benefits should be able to obtain it. And it can be critical for many low-income New Yorkers' ability to remain in their homes. This legislation today solves for that problem, and it allows us to auto-renew anybody who we have not heard back from since we first sent out renewal notices last November. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on the pre-considered intro, and we are happy to answer any questions that the committee may have on it.
Thank you, Ken. So you testified that the current list of 17,902 eligible renewal recipients, Department of Finance has yet to hear from 5,426 households. Can you estimate what proportion of those households that you haven't heard from would be eligible for the auto renewal?
I'll defer to my colleague.
Well, they would all be eligible. They would be automatically renewed into the program. So we wouldn't, at the point of approval, we wouldn't be removing anyone or revoking anyone.
Okay. So I know last year, Finance waived the March 15 application deadline for the households that were determined to be ineligible for auto renewal. Can you promise to have some flexibility this year?
Yes, well, assuming that if the legislation is passed today, that would automatically allow us to go in and to renew the 5,000 outstanding folks that have not yet applied. And what we would do is we would also extend the opportunity for those that we've approved, if they've had a change in income, to submit additional information to us because they may be able to benefit from a greater percentage of the benefit. So we would extend that courtesy to May 1st to allow them to submit additional documentation to us.
Okay.
So just want to be flexible as possible on that.
Yeah.
At any time, anyone that can apply should apply, even if it's after the deadline.
And if I could just make one quick correction. In the testimony, my colleague mentioned March 5th. The deadline is actually March 15th. So we still have a couple of days for them to apply. So we would extend the courtesy.
So last year, I know Finance denied ski and D renewals for approximately 850 households. But I know there was some confusion about why that was so. So would you be able to confirm on the record that those households that were denied fell into one of the four categories that made them ineligible for auto renewal, and that they either subsequently failed to file a renewal application or filed an application that indicated that they did not qualify?
Well, in that, yes. So they fell into one of the four categories, either deceased or property changed hands, or they changed residency or ownership structure in the household. So we do that after compliance work. We go back and we check to make sure that the folks that are receiving the benefits remain eligible to receive the benefit. If they're no longer eligible, then we reach out to them, give them an opportunity to correct whatever discrepancies that they may have, and allow them to either get back on, or if they can't do that, we have to revoke them out of the program.
Okay. Are there any of my colleagues have questions? Councilmember Brewer?
Thank you very much. My first question is, can you break down where the 5,000 plus are per council district, and then we could call them and ask them what the hell's going on?
Yes.
All right, can we get that list? We can immediately call. And second, what do you think, there's always been there's a potential list of gazillion more people who could be eligible for this program. Yeah. Do you have a sense of what that is, even though it's not on the table for today? In other words, many more seniors than disabled, as I understand it, just don't sign up, and we're all trying to get them to do that. So my question is, do you have that potential number, and what are we doing to try to get them to sign up?
I think we could, partner with the council on outreach to make folks aware of the program. That would be a good start.
Okay, so we don't have a number as to how many people might be eligible, income, age, et cetera.
We don't have that number at this time, but we can work on trying to get you that number.
Okay, it's thousands, so thank you very much.
Councilmember Powers?
I just want to commend Kenny Grace today on his performance here before the city council as a former employee of this council. That's it. Thank you.
I was going to turn up the hot lights on him. Okay, we have questions, I think, on Zoom from Councilmember Sanchez.
Good morning. I also want to do the same. Hi, Kenny. So my question is probably on the other side of Councilmember Brewer's question. So how good, how accurately, or what are the mechanisms that DOF has to know when someone has moved or there's another reason why a DOF should be demanding a renewal or requiring a renewal?
When we have ACRIS at the Department of Finance, so when property changes hands, we get notice that the properties have changed hands, and that gives us a flag to let us know that we should inquire more to confirm, and then to verify that if that is the case, then the new owners of the property can either apply, but if not, the old owners have to be revoked.
Got it. And what about the case of death? Someone passes away?
Yes, well, many times household members will either let us know that someone who's on the deed may have passed away, or we have these databases that we use to confirm death. There's a Social Security death match that we acquire every quarter, and we do a match.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a question from Councilmember Carr.
Thank you, Chair Brannon. So I want to just double down on what the chair was asking earlier with respect to the folks that you may deem to need to submit information after the law is enacted. So are there folks that you're looking at right now that you think may fit one of the criteria as laid out in the introduction for why they may need to show you some additional information? Do you have a sense of that at this point?
Well, with each application that's submitted, if there's information that's missing, we send out a notice for them to supply us that information so we can complete the package to make a determination. So unless we have an application, we won't know necessarily what informations are missing to make a determination. With the auto renewal, that wouldn't be the case. We would just automatically renew, and then on the back end, we would do a compliance check to just verify that.
So to be clear, only the folks who actually have submitted applications are going to be among the pool of people you would look at to determine if additional info is needed? I'm sorry if I'm not following.
With regards to automatic renewal or application?
No, I'm saying in the bill, right? The bill says that if there's additional information needed, right, a new person was added to the deed, someone may have passed away, et cetera, you're going to follow up with those applicants for additional information. What is going to lead you to do that follow-up other than maybe they applied and supplied you with some information that leads you to ask the question in the first place?
Again, if we get a flag that the property has changed hands, we would need to get that confirmation.
And you have no sense of a number at this point about how many may fall into that category where you're going to be following up in the next few days, right? Because the deadline's coming up on next week.
I think the goal is to enroll anyone that is currently eligible. We have the number I said earlier, the 5,000 number. The goal is to get those people in the program, and then from there, they would do the back-end work to determine if they're eligible or not. I'm sure there's a percentage of folks of that 5,000 number that are not going to be eligible.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess my question is, you mentioned May 1st as kind of like a deadline you're looking at internal to the agency to give these folks additional time beyond what the local law may give them. And so is that, like, how hard and fast is that? If people are communicating with you in good faith and they're still getting you paperwork by May 1st, comes May 2nd, May 3rd, is it a hard deadline, or is it just going to be for the people who have been totally incommunicado throughout the process?
Well, just so that we can level set the understanding a little bit, once we auto renew, you're in the program and you'll be receiving the benefit. So there's no harm or anything done. The additional thing that we would do is ask if your income has changed, and you supply us with that information, there's a potential that you may be able to get a greater benefit, right? So, because there's a range. But everyone is going to be auto-renewed if they were on the tax rolls last tax period, last year. So there's no fear of them. The 5,000 that's outstanding now, if we auto-renew, they would all be into the program.
Okay. No, I appreciate it. Listen, I think that this bill is great. I just want to make sure that we don't cost somebody an exemption they should be getting on the back end of all this. So I appreciate your answers to my questions.
Okay, now questions from Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. I think you answered part of my question, so thank you, Councilmember Carr. But I wanted to know for those that are not going to be auto-renewed and are not aware of the deadline on March 15th, I'm very grateful to the Department of Finance for hosting the home benefits info sessions. Not everybody attends. It's a virtual session, so there are a proportion of people that are not aware of March 15th. How are we reaching out to those folks? And I'm grateful that you want to work with the council, but you can't be reliant just on us to help you with outreach. So what does that look like? We have about like 4 to 5 days, and if it's business days, it's like 3 days. So what are we doing for that?
So with respect to people being enrolled in the program, this bill that we hope passes will enable everyone that's eligible that we know of to enroll, to be automatically enrolled into the program.
Right.
As far as outreach to try to hit folks that are outside of the narrow scope of this program that might be eligible.
Right.
You know, the Department of Finance does have a robust strategy we have an external affairs unit that does a lot of outreach for all sorts of programs. We've partnered with the council in the past, you know, because you guys know your districts better than anyone else.
Right.
So definitely more than happy to speak with you about new ideas, but we do have an external affairs team that does work on outreach.
It would be
and
great to know what that is, because what you're sharing is pre-pandemic, the outreach component that you've guys implemented. So I would like to know what that looks like right now. And I'm only sharing this because we had a home benefits workshop this week, had 56 people come on, weren't aware. And so you have a new group of people that would like to participate and want to be recipients. And I would like to know, what is your agency doing in order to reach out to the new group of people? That's all. So we'll talk and discuss. Thanks.
I want to acknowledge we've been joined on Zoom by Council Members Farias and Velasquez, and question now from Council Member Osei.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Madam Speaker. And thank you to those of you that are testifying this morning. I do want to kind of piggyback off of what Councilmember Louie brought up in terms of outreach, especially with how rushed this somewhat seems without you know, a full pandemic plan on what that outreach will look like. You did bring up that when you are going to engage in outreach with the council, it will be to folks that you know of that will be exempt from this program. Do you have any metrics on those that you do not know of, whether it's, you know, non-English speakers, you know, a lot of our senior residents that, you know, are not terminally online. I'm just worried about those of our neighbors that, like a council member said, that are not aware of this program. How many of them are going to be left out of this, especially with how little time there is until March 15th?
I think the goal now is to have the folks that are enrolled in the program that are at risk of falling off to get back into the program. And, you know, if there's new people, you know, as my colleague indicated, you know, we have until May 1st. Like we're anyone that finds out about the program that's eligible for the program, we encourage them to apply.
Until May 1st.
Correct.
Well, that's with additional information, right? If the legislation passes, then everyone would be auto-renewed. If not, then the deadline still remains at March 15th to apply to submit an application for the upcoming tax year, 23. So. All right. Yeah.
I made it. Sorry about that. To correct the record, the deadline is the 15th. But you know, we're willing to work with you and work with members of the public that do not know about this program that happen to be eligible.
Right. It just seems difficult to do that within, as my colleague said, within this short amount of time, especially when there doesn't seem to be a well thought out strategy for what that outreach will look like, especially for those of our residents and our constituents that, you know, are not fully online or even remotely aware of the programs that are at hand.
More than happy to talk to you offline about all the outreach that we're doing throughout the city year round.
Thank you.
Could we just, for the record, just clarify the deadlines again?
The deadline for application is March 15th. So the other number the other date that we've been talking about, May 1st, was originally the extension that we wanted to have included in the legislation just to give folks an additional opportunity to apply or for us to make a determination that they would be automatically renewed. But as it stands today, the deadline is March 15th.
But as you testified before, you're willing to give some flexibility there.
Yeah, we're willing to give flexibility to those that we've auto-renewed
Right.
that may have had a change in circumstance so that they can get a greater
Right, but not a new application.
Right.
Okay, question from Councilmember Yeager.
Hi. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll do it from here. Not trying to make you turn around, but so you can see me online or you can see me over here. First of all, I also want to share the council members' praise of Kenny Grace's performance here today. It's good to see you again. I have concerns about a number of portions of this bill, and before I do that, I just want to, for purposes of background, point out that last year when we heard this bill and when we voted on it, there were 18 members of this body who wisely opposed this bill, or at least wisely in my judgment, because I was one of them. And I think that that would be wise for them to do today, and I'll explain why. The legislation provides a number of problems that are of the drafter's own creation. First of all, the requirement that it be submitted by March 15th with an added, unstated clarification that will have some flexibility. The statute says, shall require such renewal application be submitted by March 15th of the appropriate year. I'm not sure what flexibility you're going to be able to give when a statute is passed with the word shall. Shall means shall. And I'm not sure that you have that flexibility to extend it past March 15th, and I have a concern about that. With respect to the portion of the statute, and this is a concern that I raised last year, and this is a concern that a number of my colleagues raised last year as well, the portion of the statute that refers to if the department has reason to believe. I am always concerned with giving any city agency, even one as great as the finance department, the flexibility of having a reason to believe anything without stating it clearly in the statute. We're relying on that a city agency is going to have good records, or a city agency is not going to be wrong. You know, I'm not one of those people who are the downers, but we frequently find that city agencies are wrong. So when we have a situation like that and we're not able to actually have the number of people who are going to be thrown off because as we stand here today, 5 days before the deadline for renewal, the department's not able to tell us who it is that's being thrown off, who it is that's potentially being thrown off, and reliant on the departments being able to have that reason to believe. There were many examples that we brought up last year of people who may incorrectly be thrown off. They didn't get the mail, they're not around. They may, in the department's view, have changed their primary residence, but simply not be living in their home because they're, 100 years old and living with family, but still legally entitled to the exemption, notwithstanding living there. There were, I believe you testified, approximately 800 people, 800 homeowners who met that the requirement to no longer receive the exemption, but what we didn't hear is how many were initially identified by the Department of Finance last year as the department having reason to believe. That was last year. We also don't know this year how many people the department has already identified as being in the category of having reason to believe. And so, as much as those are questions that remain unanswered, I would also say to my colleagues that there's going to be conversation today, and as we pass this vote at a finance and then onto the floor a little later, of, well, we don't have a choice. We have a gun to our head. We have to pass it. If we don't pass it, the world's going to come to a collapse. It's not true. It's not true. We can amend this bill. We can take out the language that refers to reason to believe, and we could pass the bill without it. And we can pass a bill that says that anybody who was entitled to the exemption last year gets it this year, period. That's what we can do. So if there are colleagues of mine who, and I've heard some of the questions earlier, have concerns about whether or not we can rely on this reason to believe place, we have an option. Amend the bill right now, strike that paragraph, and pass the bill without the reason to believe paragraph. Pass it today, and everybody who got it last year will get it this year, and they will not be able to turn to us and say, what did you do to me? And before I go, and this is my last point, thank you, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the time, I'm going to quote from one of my wise colleagues last year, Councilmember Barron, and she said, she was referring to the approximately 11 homeowners that she believed were in her district that fell into the category, and she said, I wouldn't want to have to meet them someplace and them ask me why I voted for a bill that put them in this category when they are presently already protected. Ultimately, that's what we're doing. We're giving the authority to the department to throw people off when they already have the protection. So without this amendment, I would urge my colleagues to vote no on this bill today. And to the extent that the department is able to provide some clarity, I appreciate it, but without that clarity and without the change in the language, I would urge a no vote. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Councilmember. DOF, just to reiterate on the record, so last year, to the council members' points, last year, DOF denied renewals from 853 households, but you're confirming that all of those households that were denied fell into one of those 4 buckets?
Yes.
Okay. There was no one that was an outlier?
Correct. And there's
Yes,
also, go ahead.
I mean, out of that group, there were about 482 or 59% of the 817 that were because...
Yeah, you should put the mic a little closer.
Oh, sorry. Out of that group, we had about 59% or 482 that were because of death.
Because of what?
Death.
Death.
Yeah, the benefits were revoked. I mean, in terms of what the council member respectfully said, the reason to believe comes up when we acquire information that tells us property has been either transferred or there's been new homeowners added to the deed or one's primary residence has been changed. Once we get information to that effect, we have to do the research. We do ask for the homeowners to clarify whether or not this is the fact or not, and before we take any action to revoke or to remove a benefit. So we do give them that opportunity, and in addition to that, they have the opportunity to appeal to the tax commission. So if we did make a mistake, they can go to the tax commission, provide the necessary proof, and be reinstated right back to the program, should that happen. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay.
Right.
I just want to add that, today, there's 5,426 households that we have not heard from, and they will not have the benefit on the 16th if we don't pass the bill.
Got it, right. Okay, I have a question from Councilmember Brooks Powers.
Thank you. Just taking into account what has been said by some of my colleagues and wanting to ensure we're protecting folks from being inadvertently left off of this incentive or this resource, I want to know what's in place for maybe seniors that may have missed the deadline because it's a short window, or if they may have for some reason been kicked off of the list. Is there a process in which they could be reconsidered, like an appeal process, if you will, that will be made available?
Well, they can always appeal to the tax commission and provide necessary proof and information that would otherwise turn our determination around. So they have that option available to them. But the 5,000 outstanding as of this date, they have not applied. They have not applied to renew, and we're not sure why yet. We would investigate to find out why, but through the tax commission, they have the opportunity to appeal.
And will there be opportunities to request an extension if they cannot meet the deadline?
Well, we're not mandated
The
to.
May 1st deadline, like if you,
Like if someone...
everyone gets renewed now,
Right.
and if they fall into the 4 categories, they would have an issue from then until May 1st, and they have until May 1st to rectify.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you.
But everyone today would be
Would just automatically...
automatically enrolled.
Got it, thank you.
Councilmember Hanks?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Do you have the IDs of the number of people per council district that may not be auto-renewed by the 15th? And if not, what can our offices do to assist in contacting our own constituents?
Are you referring to a break-in of the 5,426 in case this bill doesn't pass?
Yes.
I do have, we can break that out.
Well played, Mr. Grace. Question from Councilmember Barron on Zoom.
I think that we should take very seriously into consideration of expediting doing this the right way. The present way, saying it's a deadline, making you panic, thinking that if you don't vote for this, danger's gonna come to 5,000 some odd people. When this council wants to do something, we know how to expedite amendments. We know how to go about making this thing right. My predecessor, very wise woman, stated clearly that this could hurt some of our people. And while you are voting for something that definitely would get 5,000 some odd back on the rolls, but the people that will be left off, it's not necessary. If we just expedite an amendment to this and make sure that everybody that's eligible be able to still benefit from this program and not rush. This is how they do us. They rush stuff. So you say, oh man, if I don't do this, then I'm going to be hurting so many people, when we could do it right and help so many more and not hurt those who will not be covered by this piece here. So I'm urging us to not vote for this and do it the right way so that everybody's protected. Because when you go back to your communities and you run into some seniors who are going to be devastated by this because we're rushing into this, it could be a major problem. So I say we should do it the right way. Even if we have to take time out to amend it, have a hearing tonight or whatever, or tomorrow, emergency, whatever, these are our seniors. And there's an old African proverb that says, take care of those who may have lost their teeth because they took care of you when you were teething. Thank you.
Can you give us an idea of how much the programs have grown over the years based on your outreach? Do you have numbers for that? Like how many more people who are eligible who are now?
Yeah, we could get back to you with numbers on how big the program's grown over the years.
I mean, and is it a steady increase?
It's hard to tell right now because the pandemic year was very hard to gauge. You know, people fell off for many reasons. I mean, we don't really, we're sort of still gathering this data now, right? And it's hard to tell. But we can get back to you with some numbers.
I mean, I think I speak for all my colleagues in that, you know, the folks that know how to apply for this stuff know how to apply for this stuff. Yeah. It's the people that don't know how to engage with their government that we really have to be making a concerted effort in reaching, the folks that don't know what's out there. So I'd love to know what successes we've had there and how we can be a partner in improving it. I think we just have Speaker Adams.
Good morning, and thank you both for being here today. Thank you for supporting this legislation. As was in the past, I still stand by this legislation. I think it is vital to keep our seniors who are aging in place home. As a resident of Southeast Queens all my life, we know the benefit of making sure that seniors are able to age in place respectfully. My only question would be to follow up, and I thank my colleagues for all of their concerns, comments, and questions, fruitful as always. We would still be curious to know those numbers, though, of those that we are unable to reach, and the numbers per district that we can get to. Other than that, I urge my colleagues to support this legislation. I think that it is vital, and we should leave no senior behind when it comes to expiration dates that are in the future. We must protect them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. One last question from Councilmember Osei on Zoom.
Thank you very much. And I think this is just a comment, but I think this bill is a great bill on face value. However, I think throughout this entire hearing, there's a lot of, we'll get back to you, we'll get back to you, we'll get back to you. And, we're expected to vote on this today, and the deadline is on March 15th, and it just doesn't seem like enough time for, us to, or at least, myself to make a decision on this when we don't have the actual numbers of, seniors that could potentially be harmed and affected by this. And I represent a district filled with seniors, and that is the last thing that I want to do to them. Maybe my question could be like, when would you be able to get all of that data back to us? Would it be today?
I'd be happy to talk to you today.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councilmember Osei, we can walk you through it as well. Could we get finance to agree to send us the answers to our questions before our stated meeting?
Yes.
Is that doable?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Okay, if there are no further questions, I'll now ask Billy Martin, the committee clerk, to call the roll.
Good morning, William Martin, Committee Clerk. Roll call vote, Committee on Finance. All items are coupled. Chair Brannan.
I vote aye.
Ayala.
I vote aye.
Moya.
Vote aye.
Thank you. Powers.
I vote aye.
Lewis.
I vote aye.
Brooks Powers.
I vote aye.
Barron.
I abstain until we can get an amended version of this bill so that it protects all of our seniors and that nobody is left and hurt, because some people are going to be hurt by this.
Thank you, Councilmember Barron. And the other bills?
Aye on all.
Thank you, sir. Brewer.
I vote aye. This is a great bill for the 5,000 plus seniors. And of course, we have work to do in the future, but congratulations, Madam Speaker and the Department of Finance. This is an excellent bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Farias.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Hanks.
I vote aye.
Hudson.
Pass.
Kagan. Thank you. Osei.
I vote aye on all except the ski/D bill, in which I'll abstain, and I echo the sentiments of my colleague, Councilmember Barron.
Thank you. Sanchez.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Velasquez. Juan.
I vote aye.
Carr.
I'll be abstaining on Introduction 71 and Resolution 54, and I on the rest. And there's a transparency on the order calendar. So I'm just going to disclose on the record that we're funding CUNY in this transparency resolution, and my domestic partner is a student at CUNY.
Hudson.
I vote aye on all and understand the concerns and support an effort to address the issues that have been raised by my colleagues.
Thank you. Councilmember Velasquez. Okay. By vote of 16 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, no abstentions, all items are adopted with the following exceptions of Introduction 71, which is adopted by the committee, 14 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 2 abstentions, and Resolution 54, which is adopted by the committee, 15 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you, Billy. With that, this meeting is adjourned.